So, does the low number of Huffs mean that the Vikings weren't really into worshipping at all? Hey guys, Christopher Norse Rain. Today I will talk about a archaeological find from Norway. We have now found what we believe to be a Huff, a heathen Norse temple. A Huff is basically a building specifically for worship, where you would worship Odin, Thor, and Freya by means of sacrifice and feasts. The remains of the Hof were actually found around this time last year during a large-scale excavation in Ørsta, west coast of Norway. But they only found the structure of the building they believed to be a Hof, and no other finds to substantiate this. Because of that, and the fact that Hofs are basically ultra-rare, it did spark some controversy in the archaeological community, whether or not this was indeed a Huff. But due to recent finds that they just announced about a week ago, they now have strong evidence to conclude that this was indeed a Huff. What they found, I'll let you know in a few minutes, but first I'm going to talk about what we know about Huffs so far. Like I mentioned in my previous video, we only have about a handful of archaeological finds of Huffs in Scandinavia, and if we're looking at the written sources, there's not a lot to go by there either. If you look at this map I made, I have marked all archaeological Huff finds we have recorded so far. As you can see, there's not a great deal of them, and most of them are smaller buildings or part of a larger building. For example, in Iceland we have a couple of finds. The one in Hofstadir was a small room at the end of a longhouse, and the one in Sebol is believed to have been a Hof, but it has the same structure as a stable, so there's still some debate whether or not this had been used for worship. According to Landnámabók, though, Iceland was divided in 4 court districts that contained 3 Hofs each, so potentially Iceland had 12 operating temples back in the day. If we look at Norway, Sweden, and Denmark, the most notable finds are the one in Tissø in Denmark and Uppåkra in Sweden. The new Hof found in Norway in Ørsta is also structurally similar to both the one in Tissø and Uppåkra. It's also worth mentioning the Temple of Uppsala, because even though we have a rather poor archaeological data on the temple itself, it was probably the most legendary Hof ever built, and possibly the largest Norse religious center in the Viking Age. The 3 grave mounds in the area, 2 independent written sources about the temple, and archaeological finds of surrounding buildings that might have been used in a religious context support this theory. Unfortunately, Uppsala Temple was destroyed by the Swedish Christian king Inge the Elder in the 1080s. Adding insult to injury, a church was erected over the ruins of the temple. So, does the low number of Huffs mean that the Vikings weren't really into worshipping at all? No, it doesn't mean that. In many cases, the heathens would be out in the open and do the worshipping outside, which was also the case for earlier Germanic people. Åsatru wasn't a organized religion like Christianity, so you didn't necessarily need a house of worship to be able to worship. Another common theory is that a house of worship, a Hof, was preserved for the richer areas that actually had the resources to erect a building with the specific purpose of worship, while the poorer areas and less densely populated areas, they would make do with what they have. Okay, so let's take a look at the excavation in Ørsta, Norway. The excavation is led by Danish archaeologist Søren Din Huff on behalf of Bergen University. They worked on a large site of over 8,000 square meters and have uncovered several buildings from the Viking Age and earlier. The most interesting find, though, was the Heathen temple, the Huff. It was the structure of the building that led them to believe that this was indeed a Huff. It measures 14 times 7 meters and was erected with 6 strong wall posts on each long side. The height of the building is believed to have been 10 meters. What differs this building from traditional longhouses is that the building has 2 sets of posts in the middle of the building, which were not intended for structural strength. They believe that the purpose of these posts was to elevate a part in the middle of the house, almost like a tower, which, like I mentioned earlier, is also found in the heathen temples in both Tissø in Denmark and Uppåkra in Sweden. So, what did they find to persuade them that this was indeed a Huff? They found an iron plow, similar to this one. It is believed that this was an offer to the gods for fertility, so an offer for Freya. Analysis of the plow shows that it was sacrificed between 970 and 990. Close to the Huff, they also found the remains of a so-called horg, a small building that would house a Norse idol which would have been used in rituals. So, what happened to the Huff in Ørsta? According to archaeological data, all the posts were removed and then possibly repurposed, and then the debris of the Huff was burnt. And this happened in or between 1030 and 1070. Now, this is interesting if you put it into a historical context, because Norway as a country was officially Christianed at Moster in 1024. So this means that the Huff wasn't immediately torn down after the christening of Norway. One theory is that the Huff was used as a Christian church for a few years before it was demolished. To look at the bright side, there are new Norse heathen temples that have been erected in modern times. Here's one from Denmark, so Åsatru is still very much alive. If you like this kind of content, give the video a like and subscribe to Norse Rain. It really helps out the channel and I do appreciate it a lot. If you want to stay up to date with Norse Rain and other Viking related news, be sure to follow Norse Rain on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. You can find the links in the description below. I'm still posting videos once a week, so be sure to check in next Sunday too. That's all for today, folks. I'll see you on the next one.